Rachel Service here, the CEO of Happiness Concierge and the author of There Has to Be More, the Essential Guide to Personal Growth. In this video, we're going to be talking about needs, how to acknowledge what they are, how to become aware of what our needs are, and most importantly, how to communicate what our needs are. So welcome to your survival guide. Now, as we've referenced before, both in the book, the workbook, the audio book, and of course here these beautiful videos, we've talked about the idea of people might not respond as we like, as we anticipate, as we expect, or they might actually respond in a way we do expect, and that's both disappointing, maybe not even surprising. So in this section, I want us to have a think about what would our needs look like, what would it mean to communicate them, and what would it mean to have them respected and endorsed. Now, for those of you, you might communicate your news and it might be easy breezy. That's amazing. For some of us, it might be a little bit more nuanced. So let's go through this exercise together. If you're following along in the book, I'm here on page 140. And then in the workbook, let's take a look here. We're here on page 83. Now, if you do find yourself in a scenario where things just aren't that cool, or it doesn't feel equitable, it doesn't feel equal, here's a little question for you. What would a more balanced dynamic look like with somebody in your care? Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a friendship, maybe it's a workship, maybe it's someone in your colleague, community, or faith. What would a more balanced dynamic look like? For example, would your needs be honored? Would your boundaries be met? Would you feel comfortable communicating your needs? So often when we're in scenarios that don't serve us, we haven't A, been aware of our needs, B, communicated them, or if we have, they haven't been honored, right? So what could a more balanced dynamic look like? Would it be okay to ask for help? Would it be okay to say no? Would it be a two-way dialogue instead of a one-way monologue? Would both of your needs be met? And then to this point here, could a healthier relationship look like? So often when we have like frustrations or conflict or negotiations even, experts say that when we focus on two things, number one, what we have in common with the other person, either through a commonality or a shared goal, and number two, when we give before we ask, we're so much more likely for the other person to kind of breathe out and go, we both have the same goal here, or we have something in common, there are equalities here. And number two, I'm feeling as though like I've been gifted some generosity, so I'm more likely to be open to that, right? So when we look at what a healthier relationship could look like, let's just put all the frustrations and grumbles to the side and say, what could this be? If we were to redesign, or in fact design our friendship, our dynamic, our relationship, our workship, our colleagueship, our faithship, what could that look like? And what would it mean to have a really great relationship? Because often when we're together with people, we do have a lot in common. But as we grow and evolve, we change, they change, the world changes around us, right? So it is possible to have less in common with someone, but also a really healthy dynamic as well. So in order for this to happen, here comes the other side of the coin, which is what would what would boundaries look like to bring that into life? So let's say you have a great friend and you're wanting for it to be okay for you to say, I'm not able to help you, right? Well, a great relationship would mean that when you do that, there's not a kind of backlash or a big sob story, right? They're able to say, oh, fair enough, you have your own thing going on. The boundary in place is A, you saying no, and B, you saying I can't because, or here's why, or I'm not available that day, right? That's one really simple example of a boundary. Another boundary could be, let's see, a healthier relationship. Another boundary could be, I don't do that anymore. I don't do that sort of thing, or I'm not available for that, but what I can do is this. Boundaries aren't a bad thing. They're a good thing. They help educate ourselves and others what our needs are. And if we're not sure on what our needs are, well, the great news is that we're going to do this together in this exercise. Now, for some of you who have a dynamic in a relationship where dang, you're feeling as though I really want an apology from that person, or something isn't resolved, or I'm still annoyed at that person, or they're still annoyed at me. It can be really easy to hold on, right? And be like, oh, they just don't know that they're in the wrong and I'm in the right. And I get that. Like I totally get that. But that's why so many of us find it challenging to move on from unhelpful dynamics is because therein lies its own self of grief, right? When we choose to let go of how another person shows up in the world and what they owe us, or in fact have any link to us, we're choosing to let go. And that's why it can be so challenging. So if you are still holding on to some resentment or anger, well, hey, that actually will come along for you in your next ride in your growth cycle. And the question I want to pose to you is, how does that benefit you? How does that help you? And that's quite jarring, right? Because often when we hold on to frustration or resentment, we think, well, this is helping me because screw them and, I'm the better person. But actually it does the opposite. It ties you to them. And so the next question I want to ask is, would you like to take them along in your journey? Would you like them kind of sitting next to you? And there's a lot of work we need to do sometimes to let go, but sometimes it's just a decision to say, I will no longer choose to bring this person spiritually, emotionally, metaphorically into my next step. So if I do feel like someone owes me apology, am I expecting that and why? What's the need I'm wanting there? Am I wanting to be right? Well, maybe. I think we all crave that sometimes. Am I wanting to be the quote better person? Well, that's tempting, but we all have our own needs, our own desires, and people are going to do what they're going to do. Am I expecting anything in return for my growth, for my boundary? A round of applause, someone to say good job? Because at the heart of it, there is no prize for growth other than a life that suits you. So if we're still looking at what other people think and why don't they do this and why don't they respond that way, I just want to invite you to what could letting go look like? What could letting go of an expectation look like, a hope? And what could just mentally put a line in the sand to say, I might not ever understand why or how. I might not ever get that, but that's okay because all I do need to get is my relationship to what success looks like to me and my relationship with myself and what I decide I want to do next. So that's just some food for thought for you. If you've bought the book, The Essential Guide to Personal Growth, I tell a number of stories around my own experiences with that. Very interesting, but very symbolic as well, to let go mentally and say, hey, I have bumped into people who have done things that have surprised me. And I've bumped into people where I've probably surprised them by the way I've responded. And sometimes we kind of grin at each other, and other times we just kind of like, no, I'm not ready to see you yet. There's no wrong way. But I think just acknowledge that if you're taking someone with you to the next level of your growth or next stage or next door, why? What's the benefit to you? And how could a life without that attachment enable you to go forward or to the next stage of your growth? I want to talk now about something that's really exciting. It's changed the game for me, for many clients, and it's also a great way to kind of come clear on a negotiation, any disagreements, or any when you're thinking, why isn't this working in your survivor guide? And that's, what needs do I need to have met every day? And it sounds so kind of rudimental, almost simplistic, doesn't it? But in fact, everything that we do is driven by a need. So if we're hungry, we're going to be driven to find something to eat or become cranky. If we feel as though, feel as though we're not being taken seriously, we're more likely to play up and seek that credibility or validation. If we feel undermined, we're more likely to be pissed off. Everything that we do is in response to a need. So I really love this exercise. I do this a lot with people, which is to say, let's just put all the drama to the side and ask ourselves, come back to our core, which is, what needs do I need to have met every day? So an example might be, got to have breakfast, got to have a coffee, got to have a shower, get dressed, got to put on my suit or track pants or whatever it might be. For me to feel good as an introvert, I might need some time alone. If I'm an extrovert, I might need some time with people. I also might need to feel validated and heard. Taken seriously is a big one. I don't always feel taken seriously might be something that comes up for you. So that's a validation piece. And I might need time with my special person. So just take a moment, whether you're reflecting or listening along or writing down in your workbook, what needs do I need to have met every day to have a good day? And these can be as simple as eating and exercising and getting a bit of sun, or it can be as beautiful as I need time to download with my special person, I need time alone. It can be any of those things. And often when we feel outside of ourselves or not in control or not our best selves, often it's because one of these needs haven't been met. So the next question to ask ourselves after we've thought about that is, which of these are my responsibilities and which of these am I expecting to be addressed by other people? because that's the boundary, right? So often we get frustrated when something doesn't go to plan and we think, oh, well, that's so-and-so's fault and so-and-so's fault. Well, maybe, but also what is the need I need fulfilled? So as an example, if I need to get some work done, I'll say to myself, oh, I need to get up early and get that done. And then I don't, and I sleep in, and then I cram it to the last minute, and someone interrupts me. Instinctively, I'm wanting to blame that person. Like, don't interrupt me, right? But I'm the one who didn't address the need, who left it too late and should have got up earlier. And that's why we see these needs being replayed in the workplace so often. There's a lot of this and not a lot of this. So it's okay if stuff happens, but what I'm inviting you to say is, what needs do I need to have met every day to have a good day? How can I, A, bring my awareness to that, B, take ownership for that? And that's where self-discipline comes from, right? So taking ownership, becoming aware of it is self-reflection. Taking ownership is self-discipline, the trickier part, right? Well, they're both tricky in different ways. And then which of these are other people's responsibilities? So if you're in a partnership, or you're a parent, or you've got a dynamic going on, or you're a leader, some of those are your responsibilities. It is your responsibility to check in. Or you might have a relationship dynamic where you say, I need to feel heard by you and seen by you. Can we do that after dinner? Because I've got a big day. You know, when you start negotiating, and I say this lovingly, or making agreements is probably the word we use more often in the workplace. How can we make an agreement to say, this is my need, this is your need, which are ours to own, and which is the shared deliverable, right? So, you know, in my partnership, I want to download with my partner. I want to hear about their day, but my day is so jam-packed. I actually prefer to do that over a meal where I'm not at my computer and I can focus on work, and then I can go, time to take my work proverbial hat on and just breathe out and be with my partner and talk about our day, right? You know, it's really tricky to blend all those worlds together, right? So when we think about our needs, here's the next question here. Which of these are within our control and which are out of our control? Ugh. So what's in our control? The reason we focus on this is because it's just lower the stress, right? When we focus on what we can control, we can take ownership. And often when we see low or lower performance, it's because we stop taking ownership of things we can control. And instinctively, especially during times of change, our brain focuses on what we can't control, right? So this is where this overwhelm can play a role. So when we don't feel we have our needs met, we forget to take ownership of what we can control, and that's okay. We all do it, myself included. But what is within my control, and what expectations are reasonable? And I ask this reasonable question because I see this a lot in the workplace, where we go to work and we kind of take off our grown-up hat and we think, oh, good, there's a leader here that's their job to tell us what to do. Well, not really, and kind of, yeah. So what's the nuance there? The reasonable expectation from a leader is that they clarify what your responsibilities are. They support you along the way, but they don't do the job for you. Now, when we cede control, when we give away our power and control, we stop doing what's within our control, and we wait for them to tell us we've done something wrong, right? In this kind of phenomenon called learned helplessness. And the idea is that when we take ownership of our needs and we take ownership of our best self, we can communicate what we need to succeed, have more productive conversations, and more succinctly cut through the crap, right? We're having less frustrations and more open dialogue. So if you're in a partnership, a friendship, a workship, or in your community, ask yourself, what are your needs? And what needs are you expecting to be fulfilled by others? When we lean onto others, particularly in attachment style dynamics, we can expect our needs to be served by them. And when that doesn't happen, we don't feel very good. You can have a tantrum, feel frustrated. And that's why often when we're in dynamics that don't serve us, is because we can be enabling a tool in that dynamic. If you're interested in that concept, you might like to have a Google of the Kaplan drama triangle, the drama triangle. Very interesting there. All right, and back to us, of course. A, how can I communicate my needs once I'm aware of them? And B, how can I communicate that as my best self? Fun fact, often we become aware of our needs when we're not feeling great. And so what do? We verbalize them when we're not feeling amazing. You know, I know that I'm definitely guilty of that when I have a tiff with my partner. I think, oh, this is what I need. And then afterwards I say, I don't know why I didn't ask for that before, but it wasn't always clear to me, right? So let's not wait until those moments, although if you have had those moments, I get it. How can we communicate those needs? What are the outlets? Is it a conversation? Is it a letter? Is it an email? Is it in your regular one-on-ones with your team leader? Is it a download with your partner or your friend next time you connect with them over FaceTime, Zoom, or in person? And how can you do that as your best self? And we often say, if you're going to have a constructive conversation at work, it's so tempting to do it in the minute. But if you had the luxury of time, give yourself the luxury of time so you can kind of breathe out, get clear, and bring in, yes, authentic emotion, but not that frenetic, I have a need that needs to be met. More a curiosity of, here's my needs, what are your needs? How can we meet in the middle? Alrighty. Now, if you're thinking, oh gosh, I'm clear on my needs and it's becoming a bit clear that I'm not feeling understood more often, well, here's a little a question for you in the workbook on page 88. How can I feel heard and understood more often? So here are some prompters for you. When do I feel most heard at work and outside of work? When do I feel seen and valued by my partner or special people around me? When do I feel most understood by those around me? Yeah. It's a beautiful reflection exercise to ask myself, when do I feel seen and understood? And of that, how could I influence that? So what I mean by that is, if I don't feel seen and understood as often as I would like, what can I do to communicate what I need? Which can be daunting at times, right? We think, oh, why aren't people mind readers? God damn it. Wouldn't that be cool? When in fact, people don't know. They're not mind readers. They're too busy worrying about themselves. We all are, right? So how can I feel understood more often? How could I speak up? How could I put in a boundary? Or how could I protect my mental health by stepping away, right? So if my needs were met, and here's the third step to the reflection exercise, what would that look like? I'd feel heard and valued where? I would take ownership how? I'd stop taking ownership of other people's what? I might speak up. As a result, what would I experience? So just cast your mind back to a scenario where you might not feel heard or might not feel valued. What could you do to communicate your needs? How could you speak up or not if that's more appropriate for your scenario? And what could you do to give yourself your own validation? So often at performance reviews, for example, people wait and hoping their manager notices their performance. And for sure, that's two parts of the puzzle. What you can control is by outlining your achievements, your impacts, and your learnings, as we did earlier in our achievement audit in the book and in the video series, by saying, here's what I've done recently. I want to bring this to your attention, and here's what I learned as a result. What was the impact on your end? That's one example. In a relationship, it could be, hey, I need to feel heard. I actually don't feel heard by you. I know we're so busy. Can we make a time where we can download? Can we go for a walk and connect? How can I get more of what I need? And conversely, what is it that you need? And how can you have your needs met? So no wrong answers here, but be gentle with yourself as you ask yourself, what are my needs? How can I have them met? And then play with it. Take a little step forward and a little step back, a big step forward and a big step back. Practice with people you feel safe and comfortable with. And then after a while, when you've had that fulfilled, you can extend to wider and to people you've just met. Go well and good luck. If you have any questions, don't be shy. Do reach out to hello@happinessconcierge.com. Can't wait to hear how you go. Thanks for watching. Have fun.